Okay, our next reading is Descartes' second meditation. Most of this material is included in my notes. I just want to add a little bit here on the opening recording. At the beginning of the second meditation, Descartes refers to Archimedes. In many ways, it's a pity that our lives just become so busy and hectic that we hardly have a chance to really get to know some of these great figures in history, like Archimedes. Born 287, he died 212 before the Common Era, a fantastic inventor and a thoroughly delightful person. Here on the video, I would like to share just a few things regarding Archimedes and some of his contributions. He was born in the royal family of Syracuse on the island of Sicily, and he's easily one of the greatest inventors ever in history. The whole story about if he had a place to stand, he could lift the earth has a nice follow-up. The King Hieron, his cousin, who was the king, said he was quite happy with the placement of the earth, but he was trying to beach a ship. And according to legend, and this must be a legend, Archimedes single-handedly lifted the ship onto the shore. Well, in order to do that, you would need many miles of rope and several hundred pulleys. But if you had enough rope and pulleys, who knows? And who knows what the people got up to in antiquity? I imagine the men found it so easily. It was something like Archimedes could practically have done it himself after they had the pulley system set up that I'm sure he designed. What Archimedes did essentially was he figured out the five simple machines, which are the lever, the wedge, the screw, the pulley, and the windlass. Think of a capstan on a ship if you're not familiar with what a windlass is. And the idea of the lever was very simple. If you had a place to stand, you could move any objects whatsoever because essentially it's simply force times distance. So if you have a fulcrum that's very near a very massive object, and you have an extremely long lever, then any very small force can move a very heavy or very large object. Now, in order to move the Earth, of course, Archimedes would need a fulcrum very close to the Earth, and he would need a lever that goes somewhere a few galaxies away. It's not very practical, but nonetheless, in principle, that would be perfectly possible. We also owe to him the discoverer of specific density. That's really quite a fun story as well. King Hieron received a quantity of gold, and he gave it to a goldsmith who turned it into a crown. Now, he suspected that the goldsmith had cheated him, had replaced some of the gold with silver and then plated the exterior with gold. So he asked Archimedes if there was a way to prove this short of taking a hacksaw and sawing the crown into two. Archimedes said he would think on it. Then one day when he was going into the bathtub, he splashed water over the edges and he understood. He yelled, Eureka! Eureka in Greek means I have found it, meaning he found the solution to the problem that Hieron had. So yelling Eureka, he runs up to the royal palace, still naked supposedly, according to the story. And at the royal palace, he explains the concept of specific density. You get an equal weight of gold. You measure the displacement of the gold, which is denser than silver. And if the crown displaces that same amount of water, then it's pure gold. If it displaces more water, then it was mixed with silver. And in fact, it displaced more water. So it was a very bad idea of the goldsmith to try to cheat Hieron. I think he lost his life over this one. All right, so a little bit about, and for Lord of the Ring fans, I can't help sharing with you, he also invented the trebuchet. If you watch Lord of the Rings and the defense of Minas Tirith, you see these huge stones being cast upon the invading army. The objects doing that are called trebuchets, a type of catapult invented by Archimedes to help defend Syracuse against the Romans. And the Romans made a description of these rocks of the size of houses falling onto their ships as they came into the harbor. All right, let's leave aside Archimedes now. You got a little bit of a sense of the man and the character. One of the more difficult points of the second meditation regards the two senses of sense, the two meanings of sense, to be more simple. When I see an object, I hear an ambiguity now, actually. And Descartes wishes to focus on one of those. Now, when you normally say, if I see, let me just hold up a simple object. I see a pen. That seems to be quite simple. Ambiguity is possible there. Well, actually, do I mean I see the object itself? Or do I mean I am having the visual sensation of seeing? Now, whether or not there may not be an object here. If I'm dreaming, I sometimes see in dreams as well. But of course, there's no object that I am seeing. But I would still use the word I saw something in a dream. but it's not. But there's no object. So what I mean by I saw something in a dream means I had this immediate psychological sensation of seeing, and we can refer to see or any other sense as that, or I can say I see a pen, and we're thinking of the physical object. And if the physical object is there, we'd say, no, you're not seeing a pen. So there's kind of an ambiguity in this word sense, and I want you to be sensitive to it and to come to understand that for Descartes, when he says, I see something, he's referring to that immediate psychological impression as you could have even in a dream, or as you could have if reality were very different from the way that we normally take it. Now, finally, the wax example of Descartes is quite famous. When you go through that passage, be very careful to understand what Descartes is getting at. But basically, the idea is when wax is cold, you have all the sensations you could possibly wish to have. You can touch it, it has a certain feel. You could hit it with your knuckles, it makes a certain sound. You could taste it, it would probably taste a bit like honey. You have all that information that you could possibly want. But when you approach it to fire, every single one of your sensations changes, yet we still are convinced we are dealing with the same wax. So whatever the nature of wax truly is, whatever the essence of wax truly is, that is not something that we capture via the senses. Rather, it's something that we can only come to understand via investigation. And in fact, we say it would have the same molecular structure. But we don't see the molecular structure. We see the color, we see the shape, we can taste it, we have all this sensory information, but we don't have direct access to the molecular information. That is something we infer. That is something we come to understand with the mind. So the true nature of wax, the essence of wax, is not really seen, but rather inferred from ever-changing perceptions of the object that is before us. So enjoy this very fascinating second meditation, and that brings this video to a close.